Hello, everybody. Mike Welch back with you at Keeneland for the first of our daily racing form 2022 Breeders' Cup workout reports brought to you by the good people at Spendthrift Farm, the home of Authentic, who won the 2020 Breeders' Cup the last time we were here, the Breeders' Cup Classic at Keeneland. Going to go over what happened over the last several days. The weather has moderated a little bit. It was very chilly when I got here on Thursday. Temperature was 30 getting off the plane. But it's perfect weather this morning, and hopefully it'll stay this way right through the Breeders' Cup. We had big mornings for several important trainers. Friday was Todd Pletcher Day. Saturday, Doug O'Neill and Chad Brown. And this morning was just about all Steve Asmussen, and a great day it was for Steve Asmussen. He has to be smiling at his barn right now after watching 5 of his potential Breeders' Cup starters work this morning. 4 of them went very early. He saved the best, the big horse anyway, for last, Epicenter, and he did not disappoint, going right after the renovation break with Joel Rosario aboard. 5 furlongs in a minute and a fifth. Did it very easily. Came home in 23 and 2 and then galloped out extremely well. 6 furlongs in 13 and 1. Actually pulled up a full mile in 1:40 and 3. Looking the part of potentially the second choice in the Breeders' Cup Classic behind Flightline, who, by the way, is scheduled to arrive here today. Early this morning, very early this morning, starting at 5:30, in order, Steve Asmussen worked 4 different teams with 4 different Breeders' Cup horses, starting with Zulu for the Filly and Mare Sprint. Boy, she was really on her game this morning. 4 furlongs in 47, came home in 23 and 1, going in company. Galloped out 59 and 1 on my watch and pulled up 6 furlongs in 13. I actually went with a 3-year-old allowance type filly who looks like a pretty good filly of her own, Marcellus, who held her own with Echo Zulu up until a little bit late in the gallop out, but a solid work for Echo Zulu today. She was followed by Society for the distaff. Steve worked a couple of his distaff fillies today, starting with Society. Florent Chevroux aboard, 5 furlongs in a minute flat, finished up well. Also 24 going easily, galloped out in 13 and 3. A little while later, we had Grand Love flow back again for the juvenile fillies. 5 furlongs a minute and 2/5, was well held, finishing, and then galloped out just okay. I thought 1:14 and 2. And then Clariere was the last of the group in the dark this morning. Had Joel Rosario aboard for the distaff also. 5 furlongs in 1:01. Came home in 24 flat and then galloped out 3/4 in 1:14 and continued 7/8 in 1:27 and 3. And like I said, a good morning for Steve Asmussen all around. The only other 2 Breeders' Cup workers here this morning came late after the second renovation break for Wesley Ward, Nakatomi, and Kamari. And it's hard to think, watching them work, that these 2 horses are headed for the sprint, because they were anything but sprint-like this morning, going a very easy 5/8. They left the 5/8 pole in about 13 and 4, and just were never really allowed to do much but stretch their legs. For Kamari, 5/8 in 1:03 and 1. Nakatomi, 5/8 in 1:03 and 2. I expect to see them come back maybe next weekend and do a little bit more. We'll look back now over the what happened in the previous 2 days. Saturday, like I said, Doug O'Neill worked several of his potential Breeders' Cup horses, most prominently Hot Rod Charlie for the Classic. It was pretty much like a maintenance work, even though he did go 5/8 of a mile. He had Tyler Gaffleone aboard, went 5/8 in company, overmatched company, a minute and 3/5, broke off about 5 lengths behind and pulled away readily, and did it with not much urging, and then galloped out in 27 and 1. Like I said, it was almost like a maintenance move, but I thought he looked visually, he looked good to me. I thought it was an excellent move and expect to see him one more time next week. Chad Brown, a slew of workers, 8 or 9 Breeders' Cup workers on Saturday. The most prominent names on that list, Jack Christopher, went in company with the juvenile-bound Blazing Sevens, and Blazing Sevens gave the older Jack Christopher about all he could handle. They won 5/8 in a minute and 2/5, going easily, galloped out in 13 and 2. And actually, Jack Christopher, the rider on Jack Christopher, had to ask his horse a little bit to try to keep up with the 2-year-old into the turns. So for Blazing Sevens, a good move for him moving forward for the juvenile next a week from Friday. Search results, her work was supposed to go solo from the 5 ace pole, Unfortunately, she hooked in with a Brad Cox worker, broke off about 2 lengths behind that one at the 5/8 pole, quickly joined up. They went together to the wire. Search results in 102 and 4. They actually kind of took it easy the first 3/8, but search results finished in 23 and 3, and then loved the gallop out. Pulled away from the Cox worker, went another quarter mile around the turn. So this was a better than the time looks work for search results. It was also heading to the distaff. On the turf, Chad worked a whole bunch on the turf yesterday as well, including Regal Glory and Regier. They were the last but not the least of the turf workers. I thought they were the best of the bunch. Huge finish, super gallop out. They went 49 and 2. Again, a lot better work than the final time indicates. And don't forget, the dogs are out. They're working around the dogs, which are way out past the middle of the racetrack. So it kind of skews these times on the turf course. Another worker yesterday of some note, Simplification. The 3-year-old who I believe is heading to the dirt mile, went 5/8 in a minute and a fifth and 13 and 2 for the morning. Very good work, but by his standards, from what I saw back prior to the Derby, he's an excellent workhorse. So maybe not as good as back then, but a good work for Simplification here at Keeneland on Saturday. On Friday, it was Todd Pletcher Day, starting most prominently with Life is Good, who was heading for the Classic as well. 5/8 in a minute and 2/5, 3/4 and 13 and 1 going solo. Galloped out a full mile in 140 and a fifth. By anybody's standards, a pretty good move. The numbers, you can't argue with those. But, and maybe anybody's but his, I've seen this horse work, especially all summer at Saratoga, with just eye-catching works. Would drag the rider down the stretch and forever on the gallop out. Just visually wasn't quite that for me on Friday, even though it was certainly a fine work in and of itself. Also, before that, Malathat and Nest, they look like the 2 favorites for the distaff. They went in company, pretty much in lockstep all the way, 48 and 2. I thought Malathat was a little bit best coming to the wire, and they galloped out strong, 5/8, 101, 6 furlongs, 13 and 4. And also Todd worked Happy Saver. What's notable about it is he put blinkers on for the work. Happy Saver has never run in blinkers, so it'll be an equipment change if he runs in blinkers on Breeders' Cup Day. Half mile in 48.2, although I thought he was slightly second best on the gallop out in 101 and 1. You can go back to DRF.com for all our full reports on all the workouts I've seen here, about 40 of them for the Breeders' Cup since Thursday morning. And we're going to just move forward from there. It looks like a light action coming this week. I expect to see Flightline here maybe go out on the track tomorrow. So stay tuned right here at DRF.com for the best coverage of Breeders' Cup 2022.